2001.
The White Sox look good, I tell you that much.
Anyone that has confidence in the Twins is. I'm almost ready to start rooting for the White Sox since Ozzie Guillen won the World Series back when I was younger.
I kind of like Cleveland just because
I like the White Sox colors better than anyone's.
I just like rooting for Cleveland because they just like one of those cities that I feel like is kind of like Minneapolis that's never really had tons of sports success outside of LeBron James' crazy championship.
Which was really super sick.
Probably the best championship I've ever seen run.
Well, this year,
In the
you're
NBA.
just straight, I don't know. He's fucking shitting on people in that playoff with triple double.
Yeah, it's cool with Kobe. It's just weird because
It
it's
is
in
cool.
it's just weird because it's in the bubble and the
Basketball
fans
player,
aren't
he's
there
short,
really watching
powerful,
it. It
he
seems
can
like it's
run,
just less intense.
he's a Gold Glove outfielder. He can make a lot of money in this game. I think
What's going on here?
He comes to the Lakers, the worst team in the league. And
We're going live right now.
Has been in the NBA Finals. 1 year.
Well, second year actually.
Yeah, so it was one calendar year until it took them to get there. From 1 year of.
It's actually 2 years, but okay.
This is year 2 and they're there. So the first year was it was 1 year of rebuilding.
Yeah. He got injured. They were actually going to make the playoffs and make a run in the first year, and he got injured. They're going to win, but it's not a guaranteed. I would not count out Miami with their leadership.
LeBron James and his triple doubles are gonna shit all over whoever they play.
I hope so. Game 1's tonight, folks. We're not going to talk about basketball here, but right now we might as well talk about it because we were talking about it. The Miami Heat and the Los Angeles Lakers are playing tonight, which I think it's good to have sports right now in a time where there's so much division in our country. And, it's we mentioned Trump in our we were talking about taxes yesterday. Well, actually, I'll let my brother do the intros because I forgot he likes to do these intros before I get too far into our podcast when we talk about before we talk about the presidential debate. But we mentioned Trump in our tax talk yesterday, and we weren't even really defending him. We were just giving it as an example, and it blew up our feed about people and their opinion of Trump, which I understand. It's a very emotional time. We all get emotional over this stuff. I do. Me and my brother can get heated sometimes even. But we got to bring it back that no matter what discussion or where you're at, it's important to bring it back down to, okay, that you have the right to have your perspective. Again, it's not right or wrong. It's perspective. So no one's right or wrong ever.
Nope.
I'm not right, I'm not wrong, my brother isn't. So it's all right to be passionate about your perspectives, but it needs to come down back to at the end of the conversation that we can admit that we're not right or wrong. That's all it needs to come back to. That way, then you can sit there with someone and disagree with them.
Adjustment looks proper.
Yeah, the flake. You could sit there with someone and disagree with them. You don't have to sit there and hate them still. Because at the end of a discussion and dialogue, it shouldn't be hate after. You might have some emotions throughout the process, but at the end of it, it shouldn't be like I still hate that person because then there was no movement in the conversation. Then, if you started off hating someone or something and you ended up at the end hating it, I feel like there's no progress there. So the point of having the dialogue is progress, where you can talk about it, and it doesn't mean you're not going to get heated or even agree with the person, but you got to end it when you're not sitting there hating the person. That's just no progress. So that's kind of what I just wanted to start off as, and the Lakers are playing the Miami Heat tonight, game 1 of the finals. I will say this, if the Lakers do win, Miami's in trouble. If the Lakers do lose, Miami's still probably in trouble. But if the Lakers take game 1, LeBron doesn't lose series when he wins game 1. He wins a lot of series where he loses game 1 as well.
Good morning, folks.
So,
yeah, he tends to lose game 1.
But if he wins game 1, it's over. If he wins game 1 and dominates and figures you out by game 2, the series is pretty much over. So, but today we're going to talk about leadership in the presidential debate, and my brother and I have different views and opinions on this.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Which is going to be good, actually, because then people on here won't sit here and
think that we're completely
just
bullshitters.
a bunch of Trump supporters and we agree on everything, because it came off. There's people that when we were talking yesterday, because we were talking about Trump, but we were not talking about him as a politician.
Thanks for being with us, folks.
We were just talking about his tax thing that the media blew up.
Can I use your phone for a moment?
Yeah.
Can you log on to it, please?
But we're talking about our debate, and we all have our own perception,
No, that one. I need that
again,
one.
of how the debate happened, right? So this isn't right or wrong. My viewpoint of how I saw the debate, my brother and I were talking about this before we went live, and how he saw it was completely different, and how he didn't think there was anything wrong with certain things, and I thought I saw it way differently. I thought it was really fucked up and wrong in certain things. So what he interpreted and how he saw it is different than me, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people listening right now that feel the same. And shout out to Danielle Dupree. She was the one who messaged me and asked us to talk about this today. And
Well, actually, me and Derek Smith had this scheduled for the last 7 days. Shout out to Derek Smith. We were planning to talk about after the debate since it was scheduled.
so yeah, a lot of people probably have reached out. Shout out Del Bacon. He wants to talk
I'm sure
about
there's
it.
lots of people that want to be a part of this, but are they actually doing something about it?
Del Bacon wants to talk about this too. Shout out to Recovery.
Shout out to the Recovery Atheist, Trey Entertainment.
That'll be an interesting perspective. He always brings, again, a different perspective than you and me, which is good to have different perspectives because you can listen to people. What's that?
Leave that there for a second. I'm using it to share our show as we play.
So that's what we're going to talk about today. There's many different things you can get in with the debate, like who won. I don't really care who won.
Thanks for
I really
being
don't.
with us this morning, folks.
Thank you for being with us. So I don't even know where to begin. I think we should just begin about leadership and how the lack of that showed in the debate last night in both sides. But I really feel like it showed with Donald Trump with the way and like my brother thinks he did that strategically. And if he did, that's fine, but I don't agree with it. I think it just shows a true lack of leadership. How you view his policies is completely separate, in my opinion, than the fact that the way he just attacked the moderator and totally interrupted and broke the rules throughout most of the night and caused a lot of that, which prevented from real discussions and solutions getting talked about more. Like my brother said, they did talk about good stuff. So not that nothing was talked about, but it is frustrating watching a debate on national television and one of the most important elections for 90 minutes straight, and then the sitting president does that so extreme the whole time. It's really frustrating, and it is entertaining. I did laugh as well. My brother makes a good point, but behind that entertainment, really is a deeper sense of sadden for me. I'm just sad, really.
Yeah.
That's really how I feel after watching it all, and then I feel like I didn't get the best value that I could have got out of a debate. We're always talking about value, like the value that is provided. I think that's the more value, the more leadership, right? So that's what we try to do. And I feel like the value that was brought in that debate was poor. For a presidential debate, for a standard. That's my overall takeaway. Before we can get into anything else about who we think won points and who made better points on other things, in general, that was just my takeaway. What do you think about that?
Yeah, so I think it's a great topic. So I'm going to always try and lean into the key characteristics that I do at Women Media is ambiguities and the openness to inexactness and misinterpretations of different perspectives and different views. So I talk about this all the time. I'm going to try and say it as fast as I can because it is just a small characteristic of this whole thing. But it's the fact that you can take a fact, you can take an event, something can happen, and you can have 5,000 or 5 million or 500,000 people watch something, and they're all going to see it and hear it differently. All of them. So it's ambiguities. Everyone interprets and sees things differently. So that's ambiguities. We have to be more open to ambiguities, inexactness. And then when we talk about facts being misconstrued or misportrayed, that's the reality of it, folks. I do it myself. I constantly on the show will mention a fact and I'll be off slightly. I'm not right. I'm wrong. I'm off. I'm inexact. I'm not precise. No one's ever precise. Egotistical and ego is about being perfect, and ambiguities is about openness to imperfections and inexactness. So I'm not trying to make in any way any rationalization. I'm just wanting to focus on the fact of ambiguities and that in that topic with this, because it's a big deal when you look at the debate looking at ambiguities. Also, I think you're right with leadership. I think it's failed America, and I think it is sad. But at the end of the day, if it is sad and you really are sad about it, what are you doing about it? And I challenge people to start a podcast and start sharing their truth about political views and their stance and their story on it, because that's how stuff changes. Dialogue, communication. I listen, you talk. You talk, I listen. That's how stuff changes. As you saw last night, there wasn't much listening from either end of the political stance. Neither person, I thought, listened to the other person one iota. I don't think there was any listening going on. And as you said, I agree with you. I think that wasn't about. I think that was a big battle of ego on the stage, and I think that's exactly what Trump wanted to do. Trump wanted to come in and swing his big ego dick around, and I think that's exactly what he did. He's trying to win over the Proud Boys and people that are red in America. It just so happens to be the reality, folks. is that we are a country that not that long ago had slavery. So if you want to try and deny racism, or if you want to try and ignore it, it's a reality. It's a fact. We just not that long ago had slaves. America's young. We're a young country. We're a baby country in the world. So I just think it's really interesting. I think all the topics are great, and I think I would love to lean into any of them, whether it's opening the economy during a COVID, or if you would rather have a blue president or a red president during such crazy times, because it's really difficult times and it's really challenging times, and I think our leadership is really failing us in the grand scheme of things. And I think the bigger question is, what are we going to do to change that? Who's going to be the person that shows up and is insurgent in the field, and who is going to unite all the people and come in and have us all vote on the panel and say, we don't want to vote for either of these people. And if you had everyone show up and on their vote they wrote, we want someone new, what's the U.S. going to do? That's the kind of shit that we need to do. We need to have some change, not just sit back and comments and on Facebook Live and watch shit and not do anything. So I think it's a great time to talk about how leadership is failing us, but also how we're failing ourselves, because we're the ones at the end of the day. If you go and you vote for Joe Biden or Donald Trump in November, that's on you. That's on us. I'm not voting, because if I don't vote, if no one votes, guess what? They have an issue. If no one votes, they can't just elect anyone. But guess what? Everyone's going to turn out and vote.
Maybe.
Maybe, yeah.
The last election was one of the lowest, wasn't it? One of the lowest turnouts?
Yeah, and I suggest we get 0%, because if we get 0%...
That actually helps, but that helps Trump if you don't vote, I thought is what you said.
Traditionally, in the political scheme, if you audit the political history, when voter turnout is down, it favors the Red Party. That's why the Red Party schematically implements schemes and principles and laws and legislation that suppresses voter rights. That's why they don't want to make it insurgent like voting with mail and making voting friction-free, so you can't just vote for your phone or whatever.
Because if they made it a national holiday where everyone got the day off.
But it makes sense at the same time. It goes both ways. It's just the same thing with the debate and the ambiguities. You can look at it from both sides and make a valid argument. That's why it's so interesting. Because I fall red and blue, so I can see both ways. If you look at it, it would be easier to be voter fraud then once you make it. Once you take voting and you make it like a click of the phone, or you make it like a simple thing, you guarantee there's going to be fuckers out there trying to cheat on that shit.
Well, yeah, I don't think that. I think here's my solution. They should make it a national holiday where everyone gets paid to be off work that day and vote. Because a lot of the people that they're suppressing can't vote because they're low, middle class to lower class. They can't just take work off and vote. But I do agree with the technological aspect. I believe in in-person voting that limits fraud. But there has also been fraud, even with in-person voting, we know there's fraud. We know there's...
You're good. Keep going, man.
Yeah.
I'm just sharing to all my pages so we get more followers.
This is you?
Yep. It's a JRW.
Oh, no, that's me.
Oh, damn. Fuck.
Take a minute. I apologize, Zay. I thought it was on my page. I'm fired. Sorry, Zay. I won't do that again. I thought it was on my account. Sorry. But yeah, so I agree with you 100% in that there should be voter regulations and there shouldn't be voter regulations.
This is your account, but how did it... Well, I was in my name. That was really weird.
So I do think there should be voter regulations.
That was weird.
I thought it was mine.
But I also agree with... That's my issue, is that I fall red and blue on topics, right, folks? So I fall both ways. So I'm open to the conversation of it going both ways, because I've been on both sides, and I have seen it from both sides, and I agree with both sides. Traditionally, there's arguments for both sides, but the balance is in the middle. When you have purple politics, the issue is a lot of people don't see it. They're not able to see that the red and blue is a war. My brother's talked about it before, and the red and the blue and the divide of it. So, but what were you saying about the voting, that you believe in in-person voting?
I believe in making it a national holiday because then that would reduce suppression and get more higher voter turnout and get a true example of our country. On average, if only half the people are voting, let's be real. It's not even a real number of what we actually feel. Half the people vote. Okay, that means what do the other half the people think about the president? So it's and then two, there's a bigger issue that people have gone on. Is it just the systems fail with the two-party system and forcing people into picking one or the other here? Not giving more options of debates.
That's why they came out with the Green Party.
Yeah, so it's they're forcing you to pick Biden or Trump, basically.
Yep.
They're forcing you. Even if you don't agree with them, any one of them, you're saying, well, I'm picking, the reality is it's the lesser of two evils, as we've said the last fucking 8 years. It's basically what it's been. Well, this guy is not as bad as that guy, so let's just give him my vote. And it's like, that's why there's no drastic change, because if you're just always doing the lesser of two evils and then that's how you vote, that's kind of sad. That's why there's no changing, because it's just like with food or relationships or a career or a job, you're just picking less shitty situation.
But I think
there's a little less shitty.
But I think being in business will change your political views. It forces you. I'm going to start speaking to my audience, specifically the Fortune 5,000 companies out there that I'm starting to talk with. And in business, you have to be able to cater and have boundaries. You have to have boundaries, and you have to be able to cater to multiple different people. And it forces you to commune with others. And also another thing that does that is hostile environments. Shout out to Hostel du Nord. When you live in community environments, you have to be tolerant of others and their political views, their opinions, their religious beliefs, their sexuality. You have to be able to commune with others. So that's another thing that business pushes you to do, is it pushes you to have to be able to commune with others, in my opinion and in my experience. Also, another thing I want to talk about with all this is complexity. Ultimately, if you're someone that, what we're talking about when we talk about political debates, it's more government versus less government. And when you look at the Innovator's Dilemma and the Founder's Mentality, two of the books I talk about and audit the most, the Innovator's Dilemma is when big technologies cause major companies to fail. But number one, I want to talk about the complexities of growth, which is the Founder's Mentality, which is the book that states complexities are the silent killer of growth. And rigid bureaucracy is the primary example. In the book, it says you want to be insurgent, and you want to be the person that shows up that's insurgent, and you can scale insurgent characteristics. Insurgent characteristics, folks, is someone that's new, that's agile, that's flexible, that's meeting a small niche market, that is different. They offer an insurgent-like opportunity. So, in politics, rigid bureaucracy and the Founder's Mentality is the most complex, rigid form of anything. They say if your business is rigid and it's bureaucratic and it's ran like the government, it ultimately will fail. The Innovator's Dilemma shows that because of the complexities and the rigidity of it and the bureaucracy of it, it fails. So if all the businesses in the history have been proven to fail over time that are rigid and bureaucratic because of their inability to adapt and change via the empirical principles of adaptation and growth and optimization, that has proven that this will have to go. This has to go. It will not sustain. It is not sustainable. Based on the science, this is not sustainable.
You're saying democracy is not sustainable?
Rigid bureaucracy and complexity is the silent killer of growth. That's exactly right. So the more government you have, the less sustainable it becomes.
But you do need government.
Correct. It's the more
balance.
Correct. 100%.
You can't have no government.
But the more
you just kill each other like the Wild Wild West.
But exactly, that's my point of all this. If you add the extreme red with nothing and you add the extreme blue, neither of them work. If you had all government making all the decisions for us, it wouldn't work. And if you had no government making any decisions for us, it wouldn't work.
And it really depends on how much government is involved. It really depends on the industry or the issue or the thing. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think government needs to be involved in more situations, and there's other situations in industries that doesn't need to be as much. It just really depends for me what that is. Like, when it comes to healthcare, I think that's a common example of an industry that needs to have government and regulate it with that much money and that much drugs and that much sick people to make sure that the incentive is running it in a way where it helps people.
Thanks, CJ, for watching, brother. I want to say thanks, CJ, and thanks, Paul Belson. Thanks, everyone that tunes in. Thanks, Danielle. Thanks, Hannah. Anyone that watches, I just want to say thank you at the end of the day. But what were you saying? Keep going, Zay.
I was just giving an example of that, but I think I want to get it back to leadership here again. And
so let's read the definition of leadership. I'll pull it up while you go in on it. I'll read it, but it's a really interesting definition.
It's just, again, the poor leadership that I saw last night.
You realize what the definition of leadership is what we do here on Weirman Media, right?
Yeah, so
on the show. What we do.
I just feel like, not only that, the moderator, some people are like, oh, Trump was uncontrollable. And I get it. To some extent, he was uncontrollable. But I do believe, I don't know how they pick moderators. I really don't. But I feel like they should have.
I thought he did a reasonable job. Everyone dogged him. I thought he did if anyone wants to talk about how out of control they were, he did a great job. If you talk about if you're going to sit here and say it was the most ridiculous debate ever, and you're going to sit back and say it was the most uncontrollable, ridiculous debate ever, I think he did a great job. If you're going to say that, I mean, if you have to be the one moderating the most ridiculous debate of all time, supposedly is what everyone's calling it, then I think he did a pretty good job.
I'm not saying he was the worst moderator, but I believe that in that Chris Wallace, I think was his name. So shout out to Chris Wallace.
Thanks, Chris Wallace.
He didn't have an easy job last night, so I'm not going to sit here and bash him. But I do think, knowing the situation, what was happening, they should have known. He should have known, or they should have known. I don't know how they pick them or train these guys in. That's exactly what Trump might do, and the fact that he wasn't prepared to shut that down, I think is a little. It was tough to watch, and I feel like if they do another debate, which they might not even do, because
it should be a JRE debate. It should be a Joe Rogan Experience debate. That's what it should be.
I don't think that's going to happen, but I think if they even do another debate, it needs to have a moderator who doesn't allow that, because it really doesn't provide the value for the listeners.
Joe Rogan will get up there and choke them out.
Yeah, I mean, it's not going to happen. That's more. It's a fun thing, and I think his name would pop off, but I don't see. He's not really into politics too much. He's not really.
He's already said he'd do it. He told Trump he would do it.
Well, I know he would do it.
The only person they're waiting for would just say yes would be Joe Biden.
Of course Joe Rogan would do it. Of course he wants to grow his brand. I just don't think that's who they would pick. So I don't even know if they're going to do another one, but I wish the moderator would have been more firm with not allowing that Trump to do that. And I felt like it just hurt the debate by him.
Here's the leadership definition for you, Zay. Leadership is both a research area and a practical skill, encompassing the ability of an individual, group, or organization to lead, influence, or guide other individuals, teams, or even entire organizations, often viewed as a contested term. Specialist literature debates various viewpoints, contrasting Eastern and Western approaches to leadership, and also within Western culture, North America versus European approaches. So that, in general, the definition of leadership then, folks, is your ability to generate dialogue on ideologies, concepts, beliefs, principles, and then move forward via that dialogue, via unity and flexibility and cooperation. That's exactly what We're in Media is about. That's exactly what our podcast is about. That's why dialogue is so essential. That's why I think last night, if you think about what we just read, that definition, say, I want to hear what you say, but they were technically doing this.
Technically, anyone can do anything. Doesn't mean you're doing it well.
Yeah. Totally.
Again, they were doing that, but again, it's poor leadership. You can do anything, but it doesn't mean you're doing it well.
Totally.
We could do this podcast and do a leadership, but does it really mean we're practicing leadership if
Thanks for being with us, folks.
If we're talking shit the whole time and just talking shit. Basically, that's what happened. Talking shit. Like, we here at We're in Media, we bring up very specific problems and solutions. We talk.
Deep dive.
Exactly. There was no deep dive in anything last night. There was not a single deep dive on any topic. And even if the stuff they did talk about, it was glossed over, and a lot of it was at the very end of a 2-minute open when they had the 2 minutes. Usually they talked about the other person for like a minute to a minute and a half, and then it was like 30 seconds of them finally bringing up of what their plan is, and there was really no specifics on how they would do any of that. It was no deep dive on any topic on healthcare. I think that on any of the topics besides healthcare. I think healthcare was like the only one that I remember. There was some stuff with climate change that I think they mentioned and whatever.
And the economy reopening.
Yeah, they mentioned that too, but
actually how the economy, if you actually assess the debate, you asked my opinion. I think Trump did exactly what he wanted to do. I think he looked like people might say he looked dumb, but I think he did what he wanted to do.
I don't think he looked dumb. I think he was dumb to do that.
He got Joe Biden to call him names on national television.
Well, they both called each other names on national television. So
Trump didn't call him anything like a racist or stupid.
I'm pretty sure he called him stupid or dumb.
He didn't. Joe Biden did not. Joe Biden got clustered. He got completely
There was a couple
clustered.
moments, but I don't think it was that bad, really. He got clustered. I expected that's what Trump was going to try to do. We all knew that's what he was
called the president a clown on national television.
That was pretty funny, but that's pretty weird and messed up. But that's what the debate was.
And he called our president a racist, and he called our president stupid.
Well, the racist comments, he called him racist because he's refusing to denounce white supremacy on live television. He refused. He is.
Joe Biden didn't denounce white supremacy.
They asked him the question about white supremacy.
Joe Biden
groups.
never denounced it last night.
He has both them those questions. Trump was the only one that refused to answer it.
Yeah, I understand.
He asked Trump, do you denounce white supremacy groups? He refused. Not only did he refuse, he gave a dog whistle to the Proud Boys and said, stand off, stand by.
Well, here's
which basically means he's communicating to the Proud Boys, which is a white supremacy group.
Yep. That's the reality, man. There's racism.
So that's racist right there. That's racism.
There's race. I'm racist. I have racism in me. I'm not going to sit here on TV or a microphone or audio and act like I don't have prejudices or predispositions.
Of course.
I 100% am authentic and real in the reality and the fact that I have prejudices and predispositions to people and their backgrounds.
You're not the president of the United States. That's refusing to say that, though.
Yeah, I'm just saying.
Wouldn't that be nice if Trump said that?
There's no.
Wouldn't that be nice if Donald Trump said the same thing you just said? He refuses to say that.
But let's lean into.
He's not a racist.
But
he
let's
says.
lean into that topic. Transparency in politics don't exist. So this is exactly why I have a dream about what I want to do is about being president. So all the things that we talk about inspection, transparency, and adaptation are insurgent empirical characteristics. So if I'm trying to show up into a sector of business or area of my life, whether it's working out, whatever I'm trying to do, I need to do it better than anyone else if I want to try and stand out.
Yep.
So especially in politics, there's no transparency in politics. No one's showing up and like saying, I'm going to be authentic, vulnerable, transparent, and I'm going to share everything that I'm doing in my history. Like last night when the political, they try and bring up your history like it's a fault. You need to use it as a tool.
Yeah, I agree with that.
The people on the stage, they have his son is a drug addict. Lean into it. The way Joe Biden did that, that's the one thing from the whole debate I give Joe Biden credit for, was when Donald Trump tried to use his son's addiction against him. And he said, my son has recovered proudly. My son was a drug addict. He struggled with addiction, and he overcame it, and I'm proud of my son. And he said the same thing to America. I think that was a great job by Joe Biden, and I think that's a great point. Everyone in political is not lacking transparency and authenticity. That's why I authentically, somewhat can identify with a little bit of what Trump does, is because of the fact he's somewhat authentic compared to other politicians. Whether or not it's good, whether or not it's bad, it's ugly, I agree. But authenticity and transparency is one thing that is not present in politics.
I don't really think Trump's being authentic, though. I think he just does that because his ego and narcissism is like when people support him and he does something and he's not dumb. I think he does stuff that's dumb. I just don't, that as far as his strategy. Like, I don't think Donald Trump is stupid because he won the presidency, like my brother says. You're not stupid. He does things like last night that I feel is stupid. But what I'm saying is when he acts that way, people think it's being authentic, he's just feeding into the mouth of the people. He just feeds into what he feeds into him. Like, he's not doing it because he's authentic and vulnerable and wants to connect. He's doing it because it feeds his fucking ego, and when he gets a little bit from someone, he just wants to keep going in at it. When he gets a little bit of support from someone and that's on his side for any reason, he's gonna tear into that more and do more than what you like because it's gonna allow you to like him more and give him support more. It's not because that's just authentically him being naturally authentic and vulnerable like you're talking about. So that I really don't think it's him being that. I think some people look at that as being more authentic than someone who's just never authentic. So, but either way, there is none of that, like my brother's saying, where you're using your failure and your pain and your struggle and your authenticity and your vulnerability as your platform. In fact, it's really smart because it gives them no ammunition because you're choosing the narrative.
It's just like Eminem and 8 Mile.
Yeah, it's the same concept. That's why it's important when it comes to like a podcast. Like if I was rich and famous, you should have your own podcast because you control the narrative of the content and what you say. If I was to go on Ellen DeGeneres or Oprah Winfrey talk show, it's no different than a podcast.
Hence my interrupting.
They would control the content. They would control the snippets. They would control the narrative, the questions. It would be structured. There would be no open dialogue. Then afterwards, they get to choose what they do with the content. So they're controlling the narrative. When you don't talk about that stuff and you hide it, now you're allowing yourself to be attacked by someone to use that against you. So you eliminate their weapons by talking about it yourself, and it actually is a win-win because it makes you real and it makes you authentic and connecting. And that's not even just in politics, that's just in life. Like when you have a family, a lot of families try to hide their problems and look like they're a perfect family, but that's on a small scale. Like we're talking extreme examples being the president of the United States of politics.
But this is the highest level of leadership. This is where we have to audit them.
But yeah, if we're not doing that, that's not maximizing our leadership.
If the person at the front of the group isn't doing what we believe in, then we're not gonna. If we expect, so it's like the person, like you just said, it's a great point. If I'm running a household or I'm running a business or a team, and I'm not carrying the principles or the message or the characteristics that needs to be carried by the rest of the team, it's impossible for me to go out and bring that to the world and extend that to the other parts of my relationships with other countries. So the president is just a massive father, basically. If you look at a dad in the house, his job is to keep everyone in the house and the relationships healthy, and a mom, their job together is to keep people in the house happy, strong, content, growing, and pursuing their dreams, and like building relationships, healthy relationships. If the president is basically the dad of America, or the mom of America, they are responsible for going out and having healthy relationships with other countries. And it's impossible for us to have a leader that lacks all these skills and all these abilities to have healthy relationships with other people if he can't have his own house in order. And we talked about this in another show. But I think what you're talking about is a great, I want to lean back into the storytelling and being authentic and real, because that is the most important thing. If we started to have politicians that really were transparent with everything they're doing, that's the problem. I called Duluth City Council the other day. Thanks, John Hale, for all the information. But they don't even have their, if I want to audit and see where all this money's going, I was like, how much money did Duluth get from COVID? He's like, oh, we got a lot of money. It's going into a lot of programs. It's like, it's just, there's no real, like, trail to where all the money's going. You would think the government, who's getting all this money, would have little specific trails. If I want to see where all this money's going, where it's going. So transparency. That's one of the things I realized with my moving company right away, that I had to be transparent. So my dad always told me, don't talk about money around your employees. Don't talk about how much money you're making. And I thought the complete opposite. And then now where I am today, I didn't realize how right I was with that, but it's one of the key characteristics within business to succeed and have leadership and even to be a quality leader is transparency. And it's essential because people then feel like they're a part of it and they're not being excluded. They're not left out. They're being open to all of the truth and the facts and the realities of you, who you are, and what you're about. So I think that's a big part of politics, and I think that's why a lot of us need to start changing how we vote and how we choose things, is because of that. And I think for me, it's a bigger topic of science than it is political stuff. I'm a science guy, and I'm about less government because it opens up the ability to grow. And I think there is a trick with balance there, but I am ultimately, if I had to choose more government or less government, based on my experiences, I would choose less. But I do think there's a balance where you can have a blue education system and a blue healthcare system, and you can meet people's needs for healthcare and education, and then still build them up. And I do think that our leadership is failing us, but ultimately, I just don't see a solution anywhere in the near future. So I don't see the point of like just negatively, like you talk about solutions. So what's the solution? It's about people having a voice and starting a podcast and starting movements. What's the solution to this?
There's really no one solution. There's a lot of things. And I don't have all the answers. I wouldn't be sitting here if I did.
But based on leadership, it's about unity. For us to come together, we have to be communicating as a people.
But yeah, at the end of the day, when it comes to, if you look, asking about the solutions to our politics, it starts with and ends with leadership, and then the second thing is money.
I think it starts and ends with the people.
So the leadership needs to get better. It starts with having more diversity within our political systems, electing people into office that we're more diverse. Pretty simple. Secondly, there's too much money involved. It corrupts it. It influences it too much with lobbying, and it doesn't let the little guy, or little girl, or little person
insurgent
to come in and that wants to make a difference because the money is preventing them and keeping them down. So that would be it. And better leadership and removing money like super PACs, and those aren't just simple things that you just do with a snap of a finger. That requires, like you said, community of people coming together to want to make those changes and do that. And it starts with awesome leadership where you're not bringing people down and you're really trying to bring people together. Doesn't mean everyone has to agree with each other. Doesn't mean everyone even has to like each other. But leadership is about making it work and bringing people together for change. It doesn't mean it's perfect. It doesn't mean it's fucking even easy. But it's something that requires sacrifice and commitment and courage. And those are three things that I know leaders have and need to do that. And it's not easy. It's not going to happen overnight. This isn't something that's just like, oh yeah, we're going to get this done in a week. It's different when we're trying to do that in our personal life, right? It's really easy to overhaul. I wouldn't say it's really easy, but it's easier to overhaul our individual's life versus a whole country.
Yeah, that's why if you look at the definition of leadership, I think it's so important for us to have this dialogue, because that's where the unity and the change comes from, via common ground and teamwork and unity. If we're not, but America's more divided than ever before. So good luck. It's a huge task.
Yeah, it is. I think it's gonna, and I think you and me have said this before. It's probably gonna get worse before it gets better. So I think for me, if I can keep that in my back of my mind, it allows me to accept it easier, and accept that it's gonna get better, but also accept the fact that I shouldn't be surprised when I see more pain and suffering. Just accept that that's gonna happen, and be able to be of service, and be on the positive end when that does happen, and be part of the solution. That's my part. However that may look like, whether it's a podcast, whether it's getting into office and really starting to do it, whether it's starting a nonprofit,
Yeah, which I'm
whether
thinking
it's
about running for office.
whether it's educating yourself more on these topics and just being an educated voter, whatever it is, like that's all part of the solution. Whether it's going online, when you do go online with Facebook and not like aggressively attacking people, but actually trying to listen and connect with them, doesn't mean you need to agree with them, but not to just violently or bring hate to other groups in any capacity. Like bring love and empathy and compassion that we talk about with More Love Nation. And me and my brother aren't perfect either. We get mad, and we're not, but we're trying to do our part, and it's going to look a little bit different for everyone. But it starts with vulnerable authenticity and storytelling and connecting.
Action.
And connecting. That's the root of it. And however that looks like specifically is going to be a little different. But that's why we're doing this and having a podcast, because that's that example that we're trying to set. And that's where it all starts. So,
which was a definition of what I read from leadership. It's when you take ideas, you take concepts, ideologies, beliefs, and principles, and you generate dialogue on them. Dialogue on those ideas, beliefs, principles, and so forth. And that's what a podcast is, folks. So by doing so, now you have a platform. So if I'm going to sit back and say I want to start changing the political landscape, or I don't like this, I don't believe in it, and I'm in the comments section of a debate, and I'm going to say, oh, this is the biggest joke ever. All right, well then the next question is my action I'm taking. So I now am looking at myself after last night. I'm saying, what can I do more of? What can I do more of to see the change that I believe in? Whatever it is, whether you believe in this or I believe in that, we ultimately, in myself, I need to look at myself and what I'm doing to take the action behind what I believe in. Ultimately, at the end of the day, what last night showed more than anything is that no one's listening. The two presidents on stage are not listening, and they don't care about America. They don't care about you. They were just talking egotistically back and forth about who's right and who's wrong. They're not living. They're not living in ambiguity. They're not living in being of service and working well with others, which is spiritual principles, which is essentially what politics is all about. So politics is about being of service. We the government, we the people, for the people. But sorry to say, folks, there was no spirituality on stage last night. There was no one on stage that's like, this is about them. This isn't about us. Both men made it about them egotistically, made it about being right, made it about being wrong. Unfortunately, that's the political landscape we live in. But in order for that to change, we're going to have the people come together. So I challenge myself and I challenge other people in America, not the political system. I think we are the ones with the power. We just have the obstacle of overcoming our size and complexities of ego, where we can't come together and unite and communicate, which is the whole point of all this communication, dialogue that builds unity. If you have transparent, authentic, vulnerable communication, that you're listening and caring, like my brother said, you then develop, with the communication, you develop unity, cooperation, and flexibility, where moving forward, if you're working together via unity, flexibility, and cooperation, you then can come together as a team to make a goal or a task attainable. But none of this is attainable if we don't come together, communicate, and work together cooperatively and flexibly. So, well, I mean, how do we do that? That's why, to me, I think podcast is the key. I think Gary Vee, that's why I challenge people to look into Gary Vee, because everything he has that we're doing comes from him, and what he's doing is scientific stuff. He's doing it all. It's bigger than you think. It's about unity. So he talks about having a podcast to share your truth, and if everyone did that tomorrow, you would have a lot more unity. It's so amazing once you realize it, if you dive into it. It's amazing. Because it gives you a platform, like you said, Saya. Anyone that has, like last night, I want anyone that was in the comment section on our show from yesterday to please come on the show, or please start your own show. If you're going to comment on our art and what we believe in a way of expressing our ambiguities, I would love, Hannah, to share your story on TV and on live television. If I'm doing this and you're going to comment on it, and you're going to have, I think you probably have a great story, Hannah. I think there's so many people out there that probably are in the comment section that have amazing stories, that have profound stories, that should be sharing their voice. And I think that's where the solution is. But the problem is, egotistically, we don't want to do that. It keeps us from opening up. Ego keeps us from opening up. It's a really interesting topic.
Well said. I don't really have much to add. I think just to sum it up, like my brother said with the debate last night, it was poor leadership. There was ego. It was right and wrong, and there was no value about perspective and bringing that deep dive on their beliefs on these policies and talking about them. There was some of that. I'm not going to say there was none of that. Like, it had value at some point. But for a presidential debate, it was not nearly what I think we deserved. And I don't even know if they're going to do another one, to be honest with you. And if they do, I hope it's a lot better than that. So yeah, hopefully, we can start to do these things in the solution side of it, like we were saying here about connecting with storytelling and open-mindedness and compassion with each other, and that's kind of the first step with leadership. And hopefully we can get people in office, bring more diverse people into office that believe in that believe in this and that mindset, and that's when change will happen. But if we don't do that, there won't be change. It'll be the same similar people with the same similar beliefs, with the same similar goals, influenced by the same similar money, and we'll get the same similar results that we've been getting for a long time. And we're not trying to be negative. Like, America's
Great.
Like, we live in a great country, and and with every pain and suffering, there's opportunity to grow and connect. So, if we can look at opportunities of pain and suffering as an opportunity to be of service, like I said, then it's easier for me to be of service. But if I have a very negative lens towards division and all the pain and suffering, it eliminates my ability to be an awesome soldier and an awesome person of service. From my experience being of service, I have to be in a good place to be of service. And if I have a really negative lens at whatever I'm trying to be of service on and offer solution, I end up not being that great of a solution person, of a soldier. I'm not. Like, you look at the best soldiers, they have a very positive, they have a very open mind and strategic approach to being of service, and that's what I need to do. If I'm contributing to the hate, I am not part of the solution, and it's not something that's leadership. So for me, that's my side of the street, is how am I offering the solution and being part of that? And if I'm not, that means I'm just as bad as the next person. Really, I'm no better than Trump or Biden or whoever you think is the bad person. Biden,
ultimately,
Trump,
at the end of the day,
whatever.
That's a great point to say is the action. If I'm doing nothing, actually, if I'm sitting back and casting stones at the guys on stage that are authentically and vulnerably, whether or not you want to say they were that within the debate, but they are authentically and vulnerably putting themselves on the stage. And just doing that alone is an action that is more than the majority of people in America will ever do.
Yeah.
So, based on that, I agree with you that a lot of people are casting stones that don't have any right, that are taking no action and doing nothing at the end of the day, and they're sitting back on their phone and they're just making a comment. That if that's the extent of your action, that's the problem. That's what the majority of people currently are doing. They're sitting back in their home doing nothing, and they're complaining.
Yeah, and that's why I don't really get into politics too much, because I'm not someone who's actually doing much in it. So
Well,
I just think it's
our
really real.
show is actually all about what we just talked about.
Well, our show is, but I'm just saying on a micro level, specifically with politics. I'm not talking about them a lot. We don't, like, our show is open. We'll talk about anything, but, like, we don't have a show where, like, Two Brothers TV, you guys, is just gonna be only on politics. Like, I'm not a political expert. I'm not coming off as that or saying that, because I would view myself as a hypocrite to be someone who's casting stones at someone in when I don't know enough about the specific politics.
Exactly what we do is specialist literature. We are debating various viewpoints on our show.
Yeah, I know. I'm not saying
contrasting them.
I understand.
That's the definition of leadership, and that's exactly what.
But just because you're a leader doesn't mean you're in politics. I'm not in politics.
No, I'm not saying that we are.
That's what I'm trying to say.
But you have an experience directly with all of these things that we talked about.
Of course. I'm not saying I don't. What I'm saying is, though, on the point that you made, casting stones when you're not doing anything except making comments, I am critical of myself in my life to make sure I'm not doing that, because that's how I live. I've learned I should only talk about things that I'm living. Now, we can talk about whatever we want, and I'm not saying you shouldn't. I just have the mindset to not be hypocritical. For me, in order for me not to do that, I have to make sure I'm living beyond the things that I'm talking about and doing, or I look at myself as a hypocrite. I do. There's a lot of people out there that I feel like they're not doing that audit, so when they go online and they just comment on stuff about politics, but they're not doing anything about it, I'm not saying you shouldn't have your opinion, but I'm just talking about hate. We're just being negative and hating. You're not talking about the solution. That's what I'm saying. Everyone has the right to talk about how they feel and opinions and share that and perspectives like we're doing. But if I'm just talking shit and being negative and never really talking about any solutions, and I'm not doing anything about it in politics, I'm a hypocrite. I have no right to do that. So that's why it's important for me that if I do anything, that I'm making sure that I'm being part of the solution and doing it. So I'm just really weary that what I talk about. And politics is an area, but as I'm growing, and you are, me and my brother, we'll probably get more involved. I think as I mature and we mature as humans,
I'm thinking about
we
running for office.
naturally do that. In my 20s, I didn't give a shit. It wasn't even until 2016 when it all blew up with Trump that I really even started looking at politics. Like I've only voted twice. I've only been voting 2 times my
It's
whole life.
one of the only positions you can have where you can have a felony. You can be an ex-felon, or you could serve prison time and still be the president of the United States. That's pretty dope.
But yeah, so I'm sorry, I'm going on a ramble, but I don't have anything else to add here today. I think I'll let my
that's
brother
great
wrap it
stuff.
up. I'll let my brother wrap it up here, and I'm just going to say thank you guys for listening, and let's try to have better leadership through authentic, vulnerable storytelling, and let's be able to listen to each other and not worry about right or wrong, and just give people the right to their perspectives. And let's pray and hope that if they do another debate, that it's different, that there is more of that in the next debate. If not, whatever.
Ultimately, at the end of the day, one of the most interesting statistics I've ever read to this day is one of the most successful guys in America currently, Gary Vaynerchuk. He gives keynote after keynote after keynote after keynote after keynote.
He's a great example.
People are paying him hundreds of thousands of dollars to speak, and then guess what? They don't listen. He statistically has done research on his speaking events and his keynotes, and he consistently shares the secrets to his success for free. For free, he gives away the blueprint for how he's done what he's done. And 98.9 to 99.8% of the people never do it. Never take the action.
That's crazy.
So approximately 98.9 to 99.8% of the people that Gary Vaynerchuk, one of the most successful entrepreneurs in America currently in the world, he has like 7 to 10 different businesses. He gives it away free. He has $12,000 deep dives he gives away for free. He speaks for free. He goes to these events, he speaks, and then he records them, and then he gives that content away for free. He literally says they're not listening. And once you talk about everything that we talk about, it makes sense. We as the consumer need to audit our action, and we need to audit our listening. Those are the two of the most important topics. If we're not listening and we egotistically think we already are set in our stone where we are and what we believe in, we're married to our principles and ideas. I want to wrap it up quick with this. Being married to our ideas, being married to our principles and our beliefs is a huge, huge problem, because that is ego. If I'm married to what I believe in, if I'm married to my concepts, my stance on political views, everything, if I'm married to them, that means I'm removing any openness or to ambiguity. That means I'm removing any openness to change or growth or adaptation or optimization. That means I egotistically think I have it figured out. I know. And I think that's a big topic here, and I think that's what I want to finish it with, is auditing how much we're truly listening and auditing how much action we're truly taking behind the stuff that we talk about. Because ultimately, the leaders are the ones that do the most and the ones that listen the best. So.
Very well said. And I guess for me, I just chime in with 30 seconds here that I guess after everything we just talked about, I would say Gary Vee probably is doing this the better than anyone in the world. One of the guys.
Listening and action.
He's probably doing this better, than anyone
in the world
at scale. So
I
think
that's a great point. He listens better than anyone. Gary Vaynerchuk listens to his audience's wants, needs, and desires, and then he takes action to meet them. That's such a big topic with politics. Are you listening to the wants, needs, and desires of the American people, and are you taking action to meet those? I don't think none of the presidents or the candidates are currently doing that.
Nope.
None.
You can't really argue with that. That's our perspective. It's not right or wrong, but it's going to be really difficult for someone to sit there and argue that against that right now. I don't see it. I really don't. And you can't really argue over how Gary Vee's doing it so much better because it's because he cares, really. If you really care, you'll do that. That's the key. We've talked about this before on different things, and
exactly.
If you really care, you'll do these things. And it's just like I think it's showing that they don't really care. They're making it more about themselves. These politicians, it's more of their ego and about their brand. It's less
100%.
about the American people. It's more about ego and brand. And it's more about blue versus red and winning and just winning. We just want to win.
It's not about.
It's not about the American people winning.
Wants,
It's
needs, and
about.
desires.
It's not about the American people winning. It's about their party or their gang winning.
Their clique.
That's all that is.
Yep.
If you look at that, man, that's pretty fucked up and sad.
So that's why I challenge everyone to go out and vote no on November 4th. If you're gonna vote, vote no. No one. If you're gonna sit back and you're gonna hate on the candidates and then you're not gonna start or do something about it, I challenge everyone. Go
good.
vote. Don't vote. Vote for nobody. Because if no one turns out to vote and no one votes, guess what? Something's gonna have to change. I challenge everyone to vote no. Vote no.
You heard it from Weird Media, folks. My brother says vote no. Let's see what the comments say on that one.
All right, folks, remember, it's not right, it's not wrong, and it's simply our perspective. And at Weirman Media, we use dialogue and openness and authenticity to connect to our audience and understand their wants, needs, and desires. And at the end of the day, listen and then meet those wants, needs, and desires. How are you meeting your community's wants, needs, and desires? And how are you listening to your audience's wants, needs, and desires? And at the end of the day, testing, measuring, and developing to take action and meet those wants, needs, and desires. Most businesses aren't doing that, and politicians for sure aren't.
Vote no.
Vote no.
That's good. I did not expect that one. I did. That's yeah. I mean, I think.